Alright, so this video was not rated E for everyone. If you prefer to just be told things, then this channel was not for you. You might as well just go to church or join some camp or something. Because over here, we actually use the book. So for my next couple of videos, we'll be talking about Christ and specific doctrines connected to Christ. In this case, for today, connected to his genealogy, all right? So, for example, the 42 generations in Matthew 1, we're going to be discussing that because there's a mistranslated word that's causing so many problems, okay? I'm going to address that notorious Christian version, virgin birth. The Christian version. Not, you know what I'm saying? There's the Christian version and then there's the biblical version. Then we're going to also address that diabolical doctrine, which is saying, you know, Joseph is or is not the biological father of Mashiach, so-called Jesus Christ. I'm going to deal with that so-called and why I say that in the following video after this one. And then finally, we'll be cross-examining the Luke 3 lineage with the Matthew 1 lineage to see what the difference is. So with this being said, let's go on and get started with the 42 generations in Matthew chapter 1. So in doing so, we're going to start with verse 17. Verse 1 through 16 actually lead into verse 17 because verse 17 starts like this. So all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations, and from David unto the carrying away into Babel are 14 generations, and from the carrying away into Babel until Mashiach are 14 generations. Verse 17 is intended to be a roadmap, and we're going to use it as such. Okay, we're going to go and see if this is accurate. Again, as I've already mentioned, there's a mistranslated word causing so many problems, and it disrupts this perfect 14 generations, which equals 42. Let's get into it. I made this color coordinated thing where when you see the blue, it's going to represent Abraham to David. When you see the pink, it's going to represent David to Babylon, and the green is going to represent from Babylon to Christ. I did this so that it's just, again, this is for learning. Again, you can be told anything anywhere. I don't just tell people things. This is as it is written. So we're going to use the book. Now, in using the book, a lot of y'all are so heavily indoctrinated where you have an emotional attachment to certain doctrines. It's going to be revealed in this that those doctrines, according to the word, is actually wrong. Let's go on and get started with our first increment of generations from Abraham to David, starting with verse 1. The Cepher of the generation of Yahushaphat HaMashiach. That's what this is. The generations of Hamashiach, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Now we get started. Verse 2. Abraham begot Isaac. So Abraham is 1. Isaac is number 2. Then Isaac begot Jacob. This is your first Israelite here because his name was changed to Israel. He's number 3. Then Jacob begot Judah. This is only Judah right here, the Jews. This is not all tribes of Israel, or else it wouldn't need to mention and his brethren. Those are the other tribes. So as we continue to verse 3, know that Judah is, or Yahudah is number 4. Verse 3, Yahudah begot Perets and Zerach of Tamar. So Perez is number 5. Here's why. And Perez begot Chetsron. Chetsron is number 6. And Chetsron begot Aram. Aram is number 7. As we go to verse 4, Aram begot Ammiynadav. Number 8, Ammiynadav begot Nachshon. Number 9. Nachshon begot Salmah. Number 10. So Salmah is number 10 as we transition to verse 5. Salmah begot Boaz. Boaz is 11 of Rachav, and Boaz begot Oved. Oved is 12 of R'oth, and Oved begot Yishai. Yishai is number 13 going into verse 6. Yishai begot David the king, who's number 14. This substantiates that from Abraham to David is literally 14 generations. Now we're going to transition to the next color, from David to Babylon. We're going to pick up where we left off in verse 6. And David the king begot Solomon. So Solomon is number 1 with the new color, this pink. Solomon, of course, of her that was, the woman of Uriyahu. We know that story, okay? So Solomon is number 1 as we transition to verse 7. Then Solomon begot Rechav'am, who's number 2. Rechav'am begot Aviyahu, who's number 3. Aviyahu begot Achaz, who's number 4. As we go to verse 8, Achaz begot Yahushaphat, who is number 5. Yahushaphat begot Yoram, who's number 6. And Yoram begot Uzziyahu, who's number 7. So Uzziyahu is number 7 as we transition to verse 9. Uzziyahu begot Yotham, who's number 8. Yotham begot Achaz, who's number 9. And Achaz begot Yechizqiyahu, who's number 10. As we go now to verse 10. Yechizqiyahu begot Menashsheh. Menashsheh begot Amon, who's number 12. And Amon begot Yoshiyahu, who's number 13. So Yoshiyahu is number 13 as we transition to verse 11. And Yoshiyahu begot Yekonyahu and his brethren about the time they were carried into Babylon. So this is accurate. So with this color pink, from David to Babylon, this is accurate. Now, for our third increment of generations from Babylon to Christ, this is where the discrepancy comes in. Let's continue picking up where we left off. Verse 11 is the carrying away to Babylon, and it ended with Yekonyahu. So that should be the name we start with in verse 12. And after they were brought to Babylon, Yekonyahu, see number 14, begat Shealtiel. So Shealtiel is number 1. Shealtiel begot Zerubbavel, who's number 2. Going to verse 13. Zerubbavel begot Aviyahu. Aviyahu begot Eliakim, who's number 4. And Eliakim begot Azur, who's number 5. So remember, Azur is who's number 5 as we transition to verse 14. There he is. And Azur begot Zadok, who's number 6. And Zadok begot Yakim, who's number 7. And Yakim begot El-Ayil, who's number 8. So El-Ayil in verse 15 begot Elazar, who's number 9. Elazar begot Mathan, who's number 10. And Mathan begot Jacob, who's number 11. So remember, this is the important part here. Jacob is number 11 as we transition into verse 16. And Jacob, number 11, begat Joseph, number 12, the father of Mary, who's number 13, of whom was born Yahushaphat, who was called a Mashiach. So that's number 14. So this substantiates that from Babylon to Christ is 14 generations. Now, a lot of you who are following along and you have a KJV, you're like, hold up, bro. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You said Joseph, the father of Mary. Well, mine says Joseph, the husband of Mary. Well, that's right, because I'm not using the KJV for this. See, the KJV has the error, the mistranslated word. What I'm going to do is show you using the KJV how the KJV is in error. Let's take a look at it. So in the KJV, verse 16 from the top, number 11, Jacob begat Joseph. So Joseph would be number 12 in the KJV. The husband of Mary, of whom was born, it says Jesus, who was called Christ. So Hamashiach, or Christ here, is number 13. So in your KJV, either verse 17 is wrong, and it's 14, 14, 13 generations, or verse 16 is wrong and is a mistranslated word where it was supposed to be, husband is supposed to be father. Either way, no matter how you look at it in the KJV, one of them verses got to be wrong. Either the count is wrong or there's a mistranslated word. Actually, I'm going to show you that it's a mistranslated word. So the word father and husband is the original Greek word aner. Now, aner is a doozy of a word because it's causing confusion. People are trying to rack their brains because it's like Joseph has a lineage in Luke 3. Joseph has a lineage in Luke 1 and none of the people match. Again, I'm going to get to that point in the video when we do the cross examination of that. But in this, it's a mistranslated word because the word aner can just mean a man. But the thing is a man can either be a father, a husband, a this, or that, or whatever. So it's very easy to then mistranslate the word, assuming it's her husband or espoused Joseph, when in fact it's the father. The count, the 14 generations, substantiates that it's supposed to be Joseph, her father, in Matthew chapter 1. I think I might be the only somebody on YouTube who's actually counting these generations, but I don't just go off of what people say, as you can clearly tell. When you do the work, it becomes revealed. So a lot of you guys are just stuck completely on this KJV thing. That's cool. But then put it in the comments how you justify the count. Which one is wrong, verse 17 or verse 16? But let's continue. Now, there's a lot of camp members out there. This section of the video is for the camp members because I'm about to address a camp doctrine. Now, there's those that are in camps where the importance of genealogies, religions. No, we all come from Adam. The genealogy don't matter. We know that's BS. However, here, where it applies to this, camp members are saying, those 42 generations have to then all be male. Why they say that, I don't know. But this is just what they say. As I just showed in the, counting the generations, it said father of Mary. So it would look like I'm the one inserting Mary as a generation. This is the beef where it's the camp doctrine versus what we read. Why wouldn't Mary be counted as a generation? Why wouldn't she be counted as a generation? She's generated, she's created, she's the daughter of David. The reason why she's mentioned is because of this prophecy. Isaiah 7:14. Therefore Adonai himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall be with child and shall bring forth an infant son whose name is called Emmanuel. This is the prophecy. The prophecy then becomes fulfilled of all places, Matthew chapter 1, verse 23. Behold, a virgin shall be with child, and shall bring forth a son, and they shall call the name of the same Emmanuel, which being interpreted is our El is with us, our God is with us. The last time that I checked, only a female can bring forth an infant son into the world. No man, no, I don't care how important that man is. Even Christ himself can't give birth to he's a male. There's prophecy connected to this specific female, this human female, a daughter of Israel, because she's the seed of her father. I'm going to cover that. So yes, there's this camp doctrine which says they all have to be male. Then explain how your count is off a generation. Second, explain how a male is going to fulfill this prophecy. Put it in the comments. I'll wait for it. Now for the Christians, I'm going to switch from the camp to the Christians. There's a Christian doctrine now, which is the magical conception. God can, have relations with Mary or whatever the case, whatever it may be, and it's caused because it says virgin shall be with child. Now, I will give credit when it's due. The camps are great when it comes to this because they do an outstanding job with using the precepts to get the understanding. Camps do an amazing job to keep us away from that Greek mythological, magical, Christian doctrine. Now, so this portion is just for the Christians. 1 Corinthians 7:34. There is a difference also between a woman and a virgin. So I have this section here color coordinated so you can see the contrast. It says the unmarried woman cares for the things of Yah, that she may be holy both in body and Ruach, in spirit. So this is the unmarried woman that is being called a virgin. But she that is married cares for the things of the world, how she may please her man. This is a contrast between a standard just woman and then an unmarried woman who's called a virgin. See, typically we don't know about the culture that we're reading about in the Bible. It wasn't like American whatever today where it's just, you see with this, you don't see the third section where you get to throw that thing around, all type of dudes get to hit it, and that's classified in one of these criteria. You're not a woman, you're not a virgin. There's a word for that. It's a biblical word too, but you're a slut, you're a whore. That's a whole nother definition of female there. But in this, it's one or the other. You're married or you're unmarried. By default, the unmarried woman was the virgin. Now there are cases where a woman that has had relations is then still called a virgin. And we're going to get into that too. So basically, for you Christians, just because you see virgin bringing forth a child, okay, it's just an unmarried woman. Switching gears back to the camp members, book, chapter, verse where, it has to be a man, or biologically how a man can bring forth a child into the world. I have yet to see or hear anything like that, but to try to justify your belief with a fact, again, prove all things, I would like to see proof of that, but let's keep it pushing. This is exactly why Mary is counted as number 13, because she's generated. Let's take a look. Genesis 32:28. And he said, your name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. That's it in relevant part. Why am I showing this? Why am I showing this? That Jacob had his name changed to Israel. Why do I want to show this? Jacob's your first Israelite. Okay? Genesis 34:1. And Dinah, the daughter of Leah, so Leah is her mama, which she, Leah, bore unto Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. So here we clearly see that Dinah is the first female Israelite. What's making her an Israelite? The fact that she's a daughter of Israel, Jacob. She's generated. She's under his generations. Now take that and couple it with Matthew 1:16. And Jacob, this is a different Jacob, obviously, begat Joseph, the father of Mary. Mary is still an Israelite because she, again, this, when you go all the way back up, Abraham begot Isaac, Isaac begot Jacob. Jacob is an Israelite. She's the seed of her fathers, because I know what the camp members are thinking. So now we're going to transition and do our cross-examination of Matthew chapter 1 with Luke 3. We're going to see what the difference is between these two generations. Matthew 1:6. We read this already. And Yishai begot David the king. And David the king begat Solomon, of her that had been the woman of Uriah. So what you see here is exactly this here. Yishai, King David, and then Solomon. Let's continue. Comparison. Luke 3 starting at 31. Which was the son of Maleah, which was the son of Menon, which was the son of Mattithyahu, which was the son of, here we go, Nathan, which was the son of David, which was the son of Yishai. That's it in relevant parts. So what we see here is this: Yishai, David, and Nathan. Notice the difference. Here's a side-by-side comparison. Matthew 1 is showing us that Yishai begat King David, who then begat Solomon. Luke 3 is showing us that Yishai begat King David, who then begat Nathan. Basically, Nathan and Solomon are brothers. Well, we know now Solomon went on to then eventually, through generations, create Mary. And then Nathan, through many generations, would create Joseph. In short, Mary's father and husband had the same damn name when translated into English, of course. But the thing is this. There's a teaching that there's only one Joseph, and that's only her husband. So therefore, that one Joseph, her husband, can then be the son of two men that are brothers. Anybody with any common damn sense with a sibling, how could any of your children be your siblings' children? Anybody teaching that both of those genealogies are Joseph's, the husbands of Mary, that they're both the same? I will say that both genealogies are the same until you reach David. After David, they split apart between two brothers. So don't let a technicality get y'all, trip y'all up, okay? But the thing is, how is two brothers that are two siblings, how are they going to have the same one child? Like, make it make sense. But y'all just love to listen to people because it's on YouTube, and you people teaching that know who you are.
You made a point to bring out the lineages. Both of those lineages are Joseph's lineage. There is no getting around to that. So now Why is it a generational lineage in Matthew's and a literal lineage in Luke? You messed up when you said that Luke's lineage is Joseph's, because it has to be Joseph's. That's why every time you see Joseph, say again.
He married.
Wait, Luke's?
He tried saying Luke was married.
No, I think he said Matthew's was Mary's.
Oh, he switched.
He said Luke's was Joseph's, Matthew's was Mary's.
That's new.
Yeah, that's new as shit.
I'm curious to see how somebody's going to try to justify how both of these, lineages are the husband of Mary. Again, there's Mary's father, Joseph, and then there's Mary's husband, Joseph, okay? People just see Joseph and assume it's just one because of the mistranslated word aner. But let's continue. So Mary and Joseph are espoused, and then you have Christ coming into the picture. Here we go, y'all. As was supposed. Luke 3:23. And Yahushua himself began to be about 30 years of age, being, as was supposed, the son of Joseph, which was the son of Eli. You see what I'm saying? Joseph got his daddy, Mary's got her daddy. But the point here is the as was supposed. Now there's an old video on this subject where somebody put some misinformation out. This old video is also causing a lot of problems because people are just watching YouTube and regurgitating and repeating. That's why my first video is deceived people deceive people. We're going to make some sense of this as was supposed by analyzing verses 18 through 20. We're going to section it 18 through 20 now, okay? We're just going down Matthew chapter 1. We're at verse 18 now. Now the birth of Yahushua HaMashiach was on the wise. Looking at this, thus far in this sentence, who's the only person being mentioned? HaMashiach. Moving forward, when as his mother, the his is HaMashiach, Mary was espoused to Joseph. So now we see how many people here? Mary and Joseph. I'm going to do blue for the man and pink for the woman, okay? Now, there's only two people being mentioned here. Before they came together, who's the they here? The only two people that it could be, Mary and Joseph. Why am I highlighting this? Because that same person put more misinformation out saying that this they, before they came together, it's somehow the community. Take a look at it.
Matthew 1:18 has the phrase, before they came together. And people say that's talking about sex. But the phrase came together is in the Bible 9 other times. You see it on the screen. And none of these verses are talking about sex. Look at this. Matthew 27:62. It says, now the next day that followed the day of preparation, the chief priests and Pharisees came together unto Pilate. So we see that the words came together in this verse is referring to the chief priests and the Pharisees gathering together in one place. Now I'm going to run through the rest of these verses so that you can see that the Bible does not use the words came together as a reference to sex. I'm going to read the highlighted portion of each verse. Here we go. Mark 6:33. And out went them and came together unto him. Mark 7:1. Then came together unto him the Pharisees. Luke 5:15. And great multitudes came together to hear. Luke 22:66. The chief priests and the scribes came together. Luke 23 and 48. And all the people that came together. Acts 2 and 6. The multitude came together. Acts 15 and 6. And the apostles and elders came together. Acts 20 and 7. When the disciples came together to break bread. So as you can see, none of these verses are talking about sex. The words came together in every case is used to describe people gathering or assembling together in one place. And that's exactly what it's talking about in Matthew 1 and 18. Let's read it again. It says, now the birth of Yahushaphat was on this wise. When as his mother Mary was espoused to Joseph, Joseph and Mary were engaged. They were still living in separate homes. It says, before they came together, meaning before they came together for the wedding ceremony, where everybody would come together and celebrate. Before that happened, it says, she was found with child of the Holy Ghost. That's what it's saying. Now, why is the scripture letting us know that Mary was pregnant before Joseph and her had the actual wedding ceremony? Because that brings clarity to everything that happens in the next verses. The wedding ceremony was an important custom that we kept in Israel. During the ceremony, the engaged couple went into the wedding chamber and they consummated the marriage, meaning they had sex. There was also a big wedding feast. All this was done during the wedding ceremony.
Now, I'm not going to deny that it's not a Hebrew custom to have this ceremony. However, when the verse clearly shows who they are, there's no reason for you to then jump to a like blast off into a whole spew of different contexts which has their own they. They can be in this verse doing this, where it's a completely different they over here in that verse doing their thing. And then the they over here is them before they came together to do whatever that context is saying. That's what people are not noticing when they just watch YouTube videos. How is the they there, the they there? How is the coming together there, the coming together over there? Put it in the comments. That's a serious question. How are the they at the Dodger game, the they at the damn Dallas Cowboys game? They're all coming together to do separate things at separate games. The they here in Matthew 1 and 18 is the only two damn people mentioned. And the context is a child. Let's continue. She was found with child of the Ruach HaKodesh. Now, the context, as you clearly see, is she was found with child. I'm going to address Christian doctrine briefly. Okay, so Christians, because they see she was found with child of the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, they're getting this Greek mythology in their minds that God had relations with Mary. It's bananas, I know. Or even that it was a magical conception. Whatever the case is just folly. I'm just going to put it at that. I'm going to show you what this means. We're going to do instead of a side-by-side comparison, we're going to do a top and bottom comparison. Matthew 1 and 18 compared to Genesis 29 and starting at 31. And when Yah saw that Leah was hated, he, the Most High, opened her womb. But Rachel was barren, and Leah conceived and bore a son. So thus far, we see that the Most High opened up a literal physical woman's womb. But you don't hear anybody saying immaculate conception here. Magical conception, whatever the case may be, folly. Okay, let's continue. And bore a son, and she called his name Reuben, for she said, surely Yahweh has looked upon my affliction, and therefore my man will love me. She also had a man who was Jacob. That was Jacob's child. You see, what Christians don't understand is that every human being is created by the Most High. Now, we don't know Reuben's spirit in this example, because a child having a Holy Spirit just means he's not a tyrant. He's not an evil man. A Holy Spirit, in contrast, is a wicked spirit, because the Most High also gives us our spirit. If you're going to be a gangster, or you going to be this, or if you're going to be lukewarm between the two. That's the Most High quarterbacking that. But it doesn't mean that there was this magical Greek mythological sex between angels and humans. Another example, here you go. Luke 1, starting at verse 40. And entered into the house, talking about Mary, the house of Zechariah, and saluted Elizabeth. So we have this man and this woman, blue and pink again. And it came to pass that when Elizabeth heard the salutation of Mary, the baby leaped in her womb, and Elizabeth was filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, just like Mary. But we don't see people saying Elizabeth conceived some immaculate whatever, magically, poof, pow, zap, like the Christians think. Multiple people had Holy Spirits from the Most High. And all babies were conceived by the will of the Most High. Doesn't mean that the Most High got directly every female pregnant on the planet Earth. That's the Christian delusion. Now for this part, we're going to go back to verse 18. We're going to take a look here and address she was found with child. Again, of the Ruach HaKodesh just determines that child's spirit. So Mary was the key word, espoused to Joseph. Two people here. Before they who? The two people. Again, even if you want to say this is the community and the what they call that, the wedding chamber and this and that. Even when it comes to a child in conception, there's still only two people in the damn wedding chamber. You don't need a community to get it butt naked and pop it to make one child. It's still the two people. The context is the conception of a child. You can't change the coming together to make it. You can, but you're just gonna look foolish. But let's get back to it. So, before they came together, she was found with child. So this is what Joseph is seeing. This is the situation. This being said, this is what is in Joseph's mind, because we're looking not at American culture, which is screwed up. This is Israelite culture. Leviticus 20 and 10. And the man that breaks wedlock commits adultery with another man's woman. Even he that breaks wedlock commits adultery with his neighbor's woman. The adulterer and the adulteress shall surely be put to death. This is the judgment. So Joseph, knowing that before he can get it popping with his woman, they came together. I don't care what nobody says. That's the only two people, and the context is a baby. There's a judgment when you're betrothed that you would then be put to death if you are found doing folly, committing adultery. We're going to now go to verse 19. Then Joseph, her man, I want to pause for a second. This Joseph, her man, this man is again the Greek word aner. This is the same word used in verse 16 to complete the 14 generations. This is just more evidence to show that in verse 16 is shown to represent father, but here it just says Joseph, her man, which is the future husband. This is just evidence to show that the word was mistranslated in verse 16. But let's continue. But Joseph, her man, being a just man and not willing to make her a public example, was minded to put her away privily. I got a question for y'all thinking that Joseph is the biological father of Hamashiach. If he knows that he put that seed in her like y'all think, why does verse 19 even exist? Why would he then even consider? Why would he think to consider making her a public example? It's like he doesn't know that that's his baby all of a sudden or not. Like it said before they came together. He's a just man. It says it in verse 19. Why would a just man think about knowing that that's potentially his baby? Why would he think to make her a public example? That sounds like an unjust man. Or a man that's got some mental issues. Verse 19 would never need to exist if he knows that's his child. He's in doubt. So why are you more sure than Joseph and he's not even sure himself? Again, why are you more sure than Joseph that that's his biological son and he's debating it? Verse 20. But while he thought on these things, what are these things that he's thinking about? Verse 18 tells you that Mary, his espoused, before they could come together to get it popping, she was found with a child. I know y'all want to change this before they came together because whatever's on YouTube, but what's in the book? To hell with YouTube. This is what he's thinking about. He would not need to think about this if he, you know what I'm saying? If he did come together with her. He's also thinking about Leviticus 20 and verse 10. The public example. Putting them to death is the public example according to the law. Leviticus is the law governing the situation. But the fact that he was willing to put her away privily, as it says in verse 19, shows that he knew a little bit more about the situation. Again, he's a just man. If she's a slut and played the whore, trying to play him for a fool, he has the power to make her a public example. Why would he then put her away privily? Let's find out. Now, I know this might look ugly, but it's as it is written. So, Deuteronomy 22, starting at verse 25. But if a man find a betrothed damsel. Now, Mary is betrothed or espoused to Joseph. This is the context. In the field, and the man force her. We all know what this means by force. And lie with her, the man only that lay with her shall die. But unto the damsel you shall do nothing. I mean, why? Because there is in the damsel no sin worthy of death. That's why. It was not her intention to get graped. Got to keep it clean for YouTube, okay? It was not her intent to be graped. She's out in the field. Let's continue. For as when a man rises against his neighbor and slays him, even so is this matter. Here we go. Punchline. For he found her in the field, and the betrothed damsel cried, and there was none to save her. Again, Joseph, it literally says, while he thought on these things, he was minded to put her away privily. This is how a woman is still counted as being a virgin in this case. As I mentioned way earlier, even though she would have had some relations, this relations is against her will. She's still counted for as a virgin. Doesn't mean God got her. Well, doesn't mean God had relations with her. Christians. Some of you might ask, when was Mary ever out in the field? Good question, you know? I think that's fair. Let's find out. Remember when I showed this top and bottom comparison, you know, dealing with this conceived with, you know, the Ruach HaKodesh, and I brought up this Luke 1 and 40. So we're going to go back to Luke 1 and 40, but we're going to start at verse 39. It says, and Mary arose in those days and went into the hill country with haste into a city of Yahudah. Then she went and met with Zechariah and Elizabeth. This is when Mary was uncovered. Joseph didn't go with her. She was by her lonesome. It doesn't say anybody else went with her. And this is what I'm saying. I know that there's doctrine out there, but I just don't care. If you don't study, you have no space to then say, for one, somebody else is wrong, and you have no space to say, you know, to speak assertively as if you do study. When you don't know what you're talking about, you know what you've heard, but you don't know what you actually are talking about. You just putting faith in what a man told you instead of faith in what you're reading because you don't read. This is why you know what I'm saying? I'm going to say this. Review the video. I know I put a lot of information in this. I know it's tedious to count, but numbers just don't lie. Your camp leader will lie. Your pastor will lie. But numbers don't lie. Count the generations up. See that there's something off. Again, numbers, it's impossible for a number. Mathematics is universal. Look at the Greek word anair. You're going to see that it's used 3 times as more often as a man versus its usage as a husband. It's a simple mistranslated word. You're going to have to, again, review this. Be honest with yourself. I don't care. Yes, you were told something for so many years, but what does the book say? How is a man and his brother going to have the same children, descendants? They're going to have 2 different sets of children. So how is Joseph going to have 2 different genealogies going back to Nathan and Solomon, 2 brothers? Be honest with yourself, y'all.
When you read Matthew's, the first chapter, and you're reading the lineage, you're reading the prominent people in Christ's lineage. Both of them are Joseph's lineage.
Before they came together, who's the only 2 damn people mentioned there? That's the only they. Why in the hell all of a sudden, because somebody said so in a YouTube video, it's the whole community? You need a whole community to make 1 child. This is I'm going to call it a spade a spade. This is the stupidity that we have to just follow somebody because just because they have good, you know, video editing. They have this and that and a large following and blah, 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 blah. You know, he married to my cousin. I'm got to follow what he say. This is what's wrong with our people. We want the easy stuff and not like it's the honor of kings to search out a matter. None of y'all are searching. You doing this. I heard this. I'm gonna repeat it. Y'all, and then wonder why we be in captivity after captivity because y'all think like slaves, man. You want somebody else to do work for you and think for you. You're not meant to be free. You're meant to be a slave. But I don't want to make this extra long. I got the point across. Anything you have, put in the comments, unless it's your emotions and how you feel, what you've been taught. I don't care about none of that trash. But if you have book, chapter, verse, or something to bring up, by all means. So with that being said, that's all I have for now, as it is written, and I'm out.